I am 81 years old, and I want to tell you about the 40 years I spent performing a life instead of living one. 40 years of carefully arranging myself for people who, and I need you to hear this clearly, do not even remember my name now. Not because they are cruel, not because I did not matter, but because that is what people do. They are busy living their own performance. They were never watching as closely as I thought they were, and I burned the best decades of my life in front of an audience that had already looked away. I want you to sit with that for just a moment, because I suspect you know exactly what I am talking about. Maybe not at 81, but somewhere in your chest right now, there is a version of you that is exhausted from the same thing. The carefully chosen words, the curated appearance, the decisions made not from the inside out, but from the outside in. From what will they think? From how will this look? From what does this say about me? I lived there for 40 years, and I am here to tell you what it cost. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone, and the social arithmetic was merciless. Your family's reputation was currency, and you spent it or saved it every single day in ways both large and invisible. What you wore to church, how your lawn looked, whether your children were polite in the grocery store, whether your husband's job was respectable enough, whether your house was tidy enough for unexpected visitors. I absorbed all of that before I was 10 years old, and I carried it with me like luggage I never once thought to set down. I married at 23. I had my children. I kept a beautiful home. I dressed well. I volunteered for the right things and befriended the right people, and at every gathering I was performing, quietly, constantly, the role of a woman who had it together. And I was good at it. That is the thing about performance. When you start young enough, it starts to feel like personality. You forget there is a difference. I want to tell you about a woman named Patricia. Patricia and I were friends for nearly 20 years, the kind of friends who had dinner together and called each other and knew the broad outline of each other's lives. Patricia was impressive. She was always put together, always on top of things, always the woman in the room that other women measured themselves against a little bit, without fully admitting it, including me. I spent years trying to match something in Patricia, some quality of composure and social ease, without understanding that Patricia was doing exactly what I was doing, performing, perfectly, for each other and for everyone else. When Patricia moved away in the early 90s, I thought we would stay close. We exchanged a few letters, a few Christmas cards, and then the distance did what distance does, and we simply drifted apart. We were not estranged. We were just gone from each other's daily lives. And it turned out that without the audience we had shared, without the social world that had given our friendship its texture and purpose, there was not quite as much holding us together as I had believed. I realized, slowly and a little painfully, that I had spent 20 years maintaining an impression of Patricia rather than actually knowing her. And she had probably spent 20 years doing the same with me. That was the first crack in the wall. The moment I started asking myself who I had actually been close to and who I had simply been performing alongside. Now, I know you might be thinking this sounds like a cautionary tale about shallow friendships, but that is not quite what I am saying. I am saying something that goes deeper than that. I am saying that when you organize your life around the impressions you make on others, when the question, "What will people think?" becomes the loudest voice in your decision-making, you lose access to yourself. Slowly, quietly, without noticing. You start to forget what you actually like, what you actually want, what you would actually do if nobody was watching. Because somebody is always watching. You made sure of that. I spent years buying things I did not love because they were the right things to have. I spent years attending events that drained me because declining would have required an explanation. I spent years in conversations where I was not honest because honesty is unpolished, and I was committed to being polished. I spent years in a version of my own life that was designed for an audience, and I missed the actual life that was available to me the whole time. The unglamorous, imperfect, genuinely mine version that did not require anyone's approval to be worth living. And here is the part that still stings at 81. The people I was performing for, the neighbors and acquaintances and social contacts and distant relatives I spent so much energy impressing. I have not spoken to most of them in decades. I ran into an old neighbor last spring, a woman I had tried very hard to impress for years when our children were young. She did not remember the name of my youngest child. She was warm and pleasant and entirely unbothered by anything I had ever done or owned or achieved in her vicinity. All that effort, all that careful presentation, it landed nowhere. It left no mark. She was lovely and completely indifferent, and I stood there smiling and thought, of course. Of course. If you are sitting somewhere right now watching this and thinking about how much of your energy goes to that kind of invisible maintenance, the managing of impressions, the social performance, the constant low-level hum of how am I coming across, I want you to stop for just a second and ask yourself who specifically you are performing for. Name the person. And then ask yourself honestly whether that person is spending even a fraction of the same energy thinking about you. I already know the answer. So do you. And I want to ask you something else, something I think about often. What would you do differently if nobody whose opinion you feared would ever find out? What would you wear? Where would you live? What work would you do? What would you say out loud in conversations where you currently choose the safe, acceptable, impressive version of your thoughts? That gap, the distance between what you actually are and what you present, that gap is where your life is being lost, a little every day, in choices that seem small and are not. If this is landing somewhere real for you right now, if something in your chest is nodding along because you feel it too, I want you to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon, because this is what we talk about here. The things that take 80 years to understand and that nobody says plainly enough when you still have time to do something about them. There are more of these conversations coming, and I do not want you to miss a single one. The bell icon means you will not have to go looking. It will find you. Because here is what I have learned. The opinions of people who are not truly in your life are not actually opinions worth organizing your choices around. The neighbor you barely know, the co-worker whose respect you chase, the distant relatives who come to the surface at family gatherings and make you feel somehow insufficient. These people do not have access to your actual life. They do not know what it cost you. They do not know what you are carrying, or what you have survived, or what it took to get you to this particular Thursday. And their impression of you, the one you have been so carefully managing, it is not even a picture of you. It is a picture of the performance. And the performance is not you. It was never you. My mother, God rest her, used to say that you should always dress nicely because you never know who you might run into. I followed that advice religiously for most of my adult life. And I am not saying it was wrong exactly. I am saying it was incomplete. She forgot to mention that the person you most need to look presentable for is yourself. That the only audience whose opinion genuinely shapes your life is the one you carry inside you. And that audience, the one that knows everything, the one that was there for every compromise and every performance, and every moment you chose the impressive version over the true one, that audience cannot be fooled. It keeps a perfect record. I started changing things in my late 50s, not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly and deliberately I started asking a different question. Instead of what will people think, I started asking, does this feel like me? Such a simple shift, such a completely different life it produced. I stopped attending things that drained me. I started saying no without elaborate justification. I started wearing what I actually liked rather than what signaled the right things. I started having conversations where I said what I actually thought, carefully and kindly but honestly, instead of the smooth, agreeable version I had been offering for years. And you know what happened? Some people liked me less, and the people who liked me more because of it became the most real and nourishing friendships of my entire life. The realness attracted realness. I had not known it worked that way. Nobody told me it worked that way. Tell me something. Have you ever sat with someone and left the conversation feeling completely seen, not impressive, not well received, but actually known? Where you said the real thing and they understood it and said their real thing back, and suddenly the room felt different, warmer and lighter and somehow more honest than any room you had been in recently. I want to know if you have felt that. Leave me a comment because I genuinely want to hear. Because that feeling, that specific quality of being known rather than admired, that is what a lifetime of impression management costs you. And you do not fully realize what you are missing until you finally stop and find out what is on the other side. I have 2 friends today, 2 real ones, who know me completely, every unglamorous, truthful inch of me. They have seen me without the performance, and they stayed. They stayed, and they love the real version, and they laugh at the same things I laugh at, and they say difficult things to me with enough kindness that I can actually hear them. I would trade every impressive impression I ever made on every peripheral acquaintance in my entire life for one of those two people. And the bitter irony is that both of those friendships became what they are precisely because I finally stopped trying to impress them. If you feel something in this, if you recognized yourself somewhere in what I have been describing, write it below. Tell me which part hit you. Tell me what you are still performing and for who. Or just tell me you understand. I read everything. And I want to hear from you. Not a curated version, just you, whatever you actually want to say. The comment section here is for real things. Leave a real one. I spent 40 years trying to impress people who do not even remember me now. I said that at the beginning, and I want to come back to it at the end, because I want it to sit with you. Not to make you sad, to make you free. If the result of all that effort is that they do not remember anyway, then the effort was never for them. It was always for the frightened part of you that needed external confirmation to feel that you were enough. And I want to tell you, from 81 years of living, that you were always enough. The real version. The unpolished, unmanaged, genuinely you version. That is the one worth knowing. That is the one that can actually be loved. Stop performing for the people who are not paying attention. Start living for the ones who are. And start living, most importantly, for yourself. You are the audience that matters most. You are the one who will remember every choice you made and whether it was real. I am 81, and I finally know the difference. If you are still here, if this conversation meant something to you today, please subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you never miss what comes next. The older I get, the more clearly I see what actually matters, and I am not done talking, not even close. And I would hate for you to miss what is coming. Go be real. That is all I have got. That is enough.